There's a moment, quiet, almost unnoticeable, when everything inside you changes. You see her, not just with your eyes, with something deeper, primitive, ancient, and suddenly your body tenses, not because you're aroused, but because you're terrified. You don't know it yet, but you're already losing ground. It's not her beauty that disorients you. It's her presence. It slips beneath your defenses into the places where logic can't follow. You speak, you smile, you try to be impressive, but everything you say is already a confession, a desperate prayer to be seen, and she hasn't even spoken. You think, this is a moment between two people. It's not. It's a collision between two psychic forces. You and the archetype she awakens. Carl Jung understood this. He knew that every man carries within him a buried feminine, the anima, and when a woman appears who resembles this inner image, you fall. You call it love, but it's not love, it's possession. She haunts your thoughts not because she's special, but because she echoes something you never made conscious. She feels like fate, but she's a reflection of every unmet longing, every mother wound, every desire you tried to suppress beneath the armor of masculinity. You never chose her, she chose you. Not her the person, but her the projection. And now you chase, you explain, you perform. Because her attention feels like salvation, her silence feels like death. This isn't romance, this is psychological enslavement. You've seen it before, men reduced to shadows after a breakup. Men obsessed with one woman for years, even when she's gone. Men who give up everything, their purpose, their path, for a taste of being needed. But what if none of it is really about her? What if she's just a mask, worn by your own unconscious? Jung warned, the possession of the soul by the unconscious shadow of the anima is a danger of the highest degree. And most men walk straight into that fire, smiling, because we've been trained to ignore our inner world. We think masculinity is control, but we don't even control our desires. We think we're rational, but we collapse under feminine energy we can't even name. She doesn't need to manipulate you, she just needs to be. And every part of you that is unexamined rises to the surface like a beast from the depths. That's why you feel weak around her, why you can't stop thinking about her, why no advice or technique ever seems to work. Because the war isn't external, it's internal, and if you don't face it, you will always be controlled by the image of a woman. Not the woman herself, but the dream she represents. This isn't about seduction. This is about salvation. About reclaiming your soul from the projections that own you. Because until you learn to stand in front of a woman, any woman, without losing yourself, you will never be free. This is what Carl Jung discovered, and what no one ever told you. Now, you're going to see it all. The illusions, the patterns, the hidden forces that shape male suffering, and the way out. Let's begin. You thought you knew her. The way she tilted her head when she listened, how her eyes lingered just long enough to make you believe she saw something sacred in you. You thought that was truth, intimacy, connection. But what if I told you she never truly saw you? Only the version of you that made her feel most alive. And what if that version wasn't even real? You see, there's something deeply unsettling about the way women know men, something ancient, something intuitive, something almost auditory. Carl Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But here's the secret Jung never said directly. Not all transformations are mutual. Some are one-sided. Some leave you emptied out while she walks away more radiant than ever. And the worst part, you thought it was love. No one ever told you that what you call falling in love was often just the collapse of your masculine center, a slow surrender into emotional dependency. And while you crumbled to fit her needs, you didn't realize she was watching quietly measuring your unraveling, waiting for that moment when the man she admired became the boy she had to mother. And that's when respect dies, slowly, invisibly, irreversibly. You chase your attention, you explain yourself, You apologize for being too cold, then too intense, then too silent. You try to decode every shift in her tone like a lost scholar of emotions, but she feels it, that you're no longer anchored. That the man who once looked into her eyes without flinching now trembles before her moods, and she pulls back. Not because she wants to hurt you, but because the polarity is gone. Because you let her enter your psyche, and instead of confronting her as an equal force of nature, you bowed. Jung understood the stance. He knew the feminine psyche wasn't just nurturing, it was chaotic, devouring, enchanting. He called it the anima, the inner feminine, and every man that seeks wholeness through projection. You don't fall in love with her, you fall in love with the missing part of yourself that you see reflected in her. And the deeper that illusion goes, the more control she has. You stop leading, you start orbiting. And here's the cruel twist. The moment you surrender your edge to please her, she feels it. Not consciously, not maliciously, but biologically. Spiritually, archetypally, you become invisible to her desire. So this isn't about blaming her, this is about waking you up. Because while you were obsessing over how to be enough for her, you forgot to ask the real question: who are you when you're not trying to be what she wants? This is not another red pill rant. This is Jungian depth psychology. This is the descent into your unconscious where the ghosts of every woman you've ever loved or begged to love you still live. And unless you confront them, you'll keep repeating the same pattern. You fall in love. You surrender yourself. You lose her. You lose yourself. And you blame the wrong things: timing, chemistry, circumstances, when in truth, it was your unconscious self-betrayal that sealed your fate. This is the beginning of your awakening. Not by becoming colder, not by pretending not to care, but by seeing through the illusion of woman as savior and becoming the man who no longer needs saving. Are you ready to meet the part of yourself that no woman can complete? Because in the next block, we're going deeper into Jung's secrets, archetypes, and the reason why most men are seduced not by women, but by their own inner wounds. You don't fall in love with women, you fall in love with your idea of them. And that idea doesn't belong to them, it belongs to you. Jung called it the anima, the unconscious feminine archetype that lives inside every man, not just as a concept, but as a psychic force that shapes your attraction, your pain, and your hunger for connection. When you meet her, the real woman, something ancient in you stirs, not because of who she truly is, but because her face resembles the one your soul's been carrying since before you even knew what love meant. She triggers a recognition. But it's not about her, it's about the wound she touches in you. The anima is projection. She is desire personified, not because of who she is, but because she awakens a forgotten part of your psyche, calling you to merge, to dissolve, to surrender. And that's the trap. Because the moment you project the anima onto a woman, you give her godlike power over your emotions. She becomes the mirror, the muse, the judge, the redeemer. And in your mind, her rejection isn't just personal, it feels existential. It feels like death. This is why breakups feel like annihilation for men. You didn't lose a partner, you lost the fantasy of wholeness you buried inside her face. But she was never meant to carry that weight. She's just a woman. Flesh, thought, complexity. Not your salvation. You gave her too much. Nietzsche warned about this dynamic in different terms. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that, in the process, he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into the abyss will gaze back into you. In your case, she wasn't the monster. She was the abyss. And you gazed so long into her beauty, her chaos, her softness, her silence, that you forgot you were supposed to be a man, not her worshiper, not her mirror, not her echo. Men collapse when they confuse the anima for the woman. You don't love her. You love what she represents, your own lost soul, and she feels it. She feels that you don't really see her, that you're looking through her into something else, something you're trying to complete in yourself. And that pressure kills the polarity. Because women aren't looking for men who worship them. They're looking for men who can see them clearly, without need. without illusion, without begging to be healed. The tragedy is this: you thought she was rejecting you, but what she was really rejecting was your fantasy, your addiction to her approval, your fear of being alone, your craving for comfort instead of truth. Jung didn't just give us the anima, he gave us the path to integrate her, to see the fantasy for what it is and to call it back, to stop projecting your soul onto the bodies of women, to meet her without needing her to, make you whole. And here's the hard truth most men never face: until you integrate your anima, you will never truly see a woman, and you will never truly be seen. Because no woman can respect a man who worships her like a goddess, yet hides from his own shadow. You want to know why she lost interest? Because she sensed it, the hollowness behind your affection, the fear behind your softness, the self-abandonment behind your gifts. And no matter how kind, how romantic, how devoted you were, she felt that you were orbiting her instead of standing beside her. That's not love. That's possession through projection. And she'll run from it every time. The anima isn't evil. She's a guide. She's there to wake you up. But not by giving you love, by showing you your dependency on it. And if you don't see it, you will confuse pain with passion, silence with punishment, and distance with betrayal. You'll keep chasing the ghost of her validation, when what you really need is the return of your own soul. And that's the next step. In the next block, we descend further into collapse. The moment you realize she was never going to save you. And finally, the moment when your real self begins to rise from the wreckage. There comes a point, quiet, humiliating, when a man realizes that he's lost something he never dared name. Not his job, not his pride, but his center, his axis. That still place inside from which all power flows. And often, it's already gone the moment she first looks at him with eyes that say, "Prove yourself." He doesn't know it yet, but he's no longer a man in that moment. He's a mirror, warped, cracked, seeking reflection in the feminine gaze. This is what Jung warned about: the danger of projecting the anima, the inner feminine, onto real women. The moment you do, you stop seeing her and start seeing yourself, your yearning, your ideal, your wound. He wrote, when a man is possessed by the anima, he becomes moody, irritable, jealous, vain, and unadjusted to reality. And yet, this is what love has become for most modern men, a distorted worship of the woman as the embodiment of meaning. She becomes the drug. Her approval, your reward; her rejection, your collapse. But she was never her. She was a mirror, reflecting what you refused to meet in yourself. And this is the tragedy. A man who doesn't know his own soul will kneel to hers. He will crown her goddess and executioner, priestess and punisher, all because he cannot hold the void inside. He'll say she changed. He'll say she manipulated him. He'll say she ghosted, cheated, left him bleeding in silence. But if he's honest, she simply followed the script his psyche wrote. The anima is merciless when unintegrated. Carl Jung said, the possession of the man by the anima causes him to lose his masculine clarity, his sense of purpose, his directedness. When you fall for a woman too soon, too completely, you are not loving her, you are escaping yourself. That's why you become reactive, why your self-respect vanishes, why her mood dictates your value. Because you're not grounded in essence, only fantasy. And that fantasy will kill your spine. It will weaken your voice. It will strip the bark from your soul until you become raw, exposed, hysterical. Think back, maybe you've lived this. You sent that one last text. You tried to be better. You gave more, apologized harder, even though you did nothing wrong. Why? Because you thought love meant sacrifice. You thought that if you could just make her feel secure, she would give you what you couldn't give yourself. But the truth is, you don't become masculine by being softer. You don't win her heart by losing your center. What's worse, women feel this. They smell the worship. They see the boy behind the man, holding flowers with trembling hands, offering his worth on a silver plate. And no woman, no matter how kind, respects a man who gives her that power. Because deep down, she doesn't want to be your mother. She doesn't want to carry your anima. She wants to be seen, not pedestalized. She wants to meet you, not complete you. She wants the gravity of your center, not the fog of your longing. The collapse comes when the illusion breaks, when she leaves, or mocks, or falls out of love with the man who loved her more than himself. And in that moment, if you're lucky, you break too, but not like before. Not in desperation, but in awakening. You begin to see what Jung meant when he said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed, but only if you come whole. Only if you are not seeking salvation. And her smile. The man who knows this truth, the one who survives the collapse, he becomes dangerous. Because now he doesn't need her to feel real. He has met the woman within and made her part of his kingdom, not his religion. Now she is not salvation, she is guest, and from that place, a man begins to love without chains, to walk without leaning, to see women, not projections. That's when everything changes. There is a kind of man you can't manipulate, not because he plays games, but because he doesn't need to. He doesn't explain himself. He doesn't chase closure. He doesn't ask, what are we? Because he already knows what he is. This man is rare. Not because he's gifted, but because he died. Not a physical death, but something deeper, the death of illusion. The death of the little boy inside, who thought love meant losing himself. After the collapse, the ghosting, the betrayal, the nights spent begging the silence for answers, a man either becomes bitter or reborn. Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. Beyond the masks, beyond the projections, beyond the collective noise. He said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But to claim that privilege, a man must stop making women his gods. He must kill the part of himself that still believes her approval will save him. Because here's the truth. You were never meant to orbit her moods. You were meant to radiate from your own. The sovereign man does not react. He responds. He doesn't give silence to punish, but because he no longer seeks permission to exist. His silence isn't absence, it's presence. And that presence terrifies women who once relied on his weakness to feel powerful. He sees their tests for what they are, attempts to locate the edge of his being, attempts to find where he collapses, if he collapses. But now, there's nowhere to collapse. He's met his shadow. He's held his rage. He's walked through his own shame and come out clean. Now, when a woman pulls away, he doesn't flinch. When she tries to provoke him, he doesn't rise. When she demands an answer, he meets her with stillness. Because the game only works on men who don't know they're playing. And here's what happens when you become that kind of man. She respects you more, even if she doesn't say it. Because deep down, every woman longs for a man who cannot be moved by the storm of her own emotions. Not to dominate her, but to anchor her. Because when you no longer seek validation, you stop being controlled by it. That is real power. But it's not loud, it's not flexed, it's not Instagrammable. It's the man who can sit in silence while others beg to be seen. The man who doesn't beg for love, but embodies it. The man who knows her beauty is not his purpose. Her attention is not his oxygen. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of integrating the anima, not worshipping her, not repressing her, but recognizing that she lives within you. She is not out there in her eyes, in her body, in her text. She is inside you, your feeling, your creativity, your depth. And once she is yours, no woman can take her from you again. This is the liberation most men will never find, because it requires letting go of the addiction to being wanted. The sovereign man has no fear of being alone, because he knows solitude is not emptiness. It's power distilled, so he moves differently, speaks less, observes more. And when he loves with presence, not desperation, because he no longer needs to be chosen. He is the chooser. And now we'll take this deeper, because sovereignty is not the end of the path. It's only the threshold. In Block 5, we confront the feminine not as adversary, but as mirror of your final test. And if you're not ready for that test, you'll fall again. Just like before, let's go. There comes a moment in every man's path when the woman no longer appears as temptation, but as reflection. Not reflection in the shallow sense, not she's like me or we share values. No, she reflects something deeper, the part of you you've been too afraid to meet. This is the true role of the feminine in Jungian psychology, not just the lover, not just the muse, but the psychic mirror of your soul state. She doesn't show you what you want, she shows you what you lack, and that is why she unsettles you. That is why her gaze, her silence, her unpredictability, all of it feels like a threat, because it is. It threatens the false self, the self you built to survive, the one who seeks validation, who performs, who conforms to be accepted. But she sees through it, and when a woman sees through your performance, and you don't yet know who you are beneath it, you will feel like you're disappearing. That's not her fault, that's your shadow calling. And most men run, they fight her, they try to control her. They chase another body, another illusion, because it's easier than facing themselves. But the initiated man, he stays. He doesn't stay for her. He stays to face what she reflects without flinching. This is the sacred violence of love, not physical, not emotional, but existential. She wounds you where your ego is still untested. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But here's the problem. Most men want the woman to transform, but not themselves. They want her to be safe, soft, predictable, while they remain untested, fragmented, addicted to control. That's not a relationship. That's possession. And the feminine, in her true form, refuses to be possessed. She doesn't want your obedience. She wants your fullness. She wants to feel that you've faced death, not literal, but symbolic. She wants to know, can you hold me without needing me? Because if you need her, you cannot see her. You only see your projection, and here lies the trap. Every man projects the ideal woman onto the real woman until he's mature enough to separate the two. That's what Jung called withdrawal of projection, the painful, beautiful process of seeing her as she is, not as you wish her to be. When that moment calms, when the veil drops, many men recoil, because now they must face the emptiness where fantasy used to live. But if you can stay with that emptiness, not fill it, not run, it becomes a portal, a doorway to your own soul. This is why real love begins after disillusionment. When she no longer makes you feel special, when she challenges you, when her darkness matches your own. And still you say, not to fix her, not to save her, but to witness, to hold. And in holding her, you hold the last parts of yourself. She is not here to complete you. She is here to confront you, to reflect back every place where your masculinity is still hollow. So ask yourself, can you hold her fire without being burned by it? Can you remain still when her chaos threatens your illusion of control? Can you meet her soul, not to conquer, but to mirror? If not, you are not ready for her. And more importantly, you are not ready for you. But if you are, you'll see that the feminine was never your enemy. She was the initiator, the oracle, the sacred wound that split you open to become whole. This is why your relationship with women will never exceed your relationship with your own anima, your inner feminine, your feeling, your sensitivity, your soul. If you cannot integrate her within, you will chase her without. Forever, that's the final illusion and the final liberation. In Block 6, we will end where all journeys end, in silence. Not as absence, but as arrival. Stay with me. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the absence of illusion. And for the man who has faced the feminine, not as object, not as fantasy, but as mirror, silence is what remains when the projections dissolve. You no longer need her to soothe you, to validate you, to complete the image you sold yourself of what love should feel like. You can just sit there in the storm of her moods, in the silence of her distance, in the chaos of the world's noise, and still not flinch, because you've seen the truth. Everything you ever chased in her was a call to face something in yourself. And now you have. Now, you don't need to speak to be understood. You don't need to explain to be respected. You don't need to beg to be loved. This is the masculine that cannot be played, because he no longer reacts. Reaction is slavery. Stillness is power. Jung knew this when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But now, you see, you feel the compulsion rise in your chest, the desire to reply, to defend, to chase, and you watch it like an animal in the forest. You no longer identify with it, you observe it, and you let it go. This is mastery, not the domination of others, but of self. She tests you again. She pulls away. She throws words like knives. And you sit there, not passive, not cold, but present. Because presence is what the feminine craves more than power, more than money, more than looks, more than words. And presence is built in silence, in solitude, in staring into the fire long, enough for your false self to burn. This is the initiation no one talks about, not pickup lines, not manipulation, not high-value man performances, but the sacred art of not reacting. Not because you're numb, but because you're finally whole. And now, when you speak, it comes from depth. Now, when you act, it comes from clarity. Now, when you choose, it comes from sovereignty. There's no more panic in your chest when she doesn't respond. There is no more performance in your voice when she looks at another man. There's no more collapse when she leaves. Because you do not belong to her gaze anymore. You belong to yourself. And this, paradoxically, is what draws her. Not your words, not your need, not your performance, but your silence. The man who can sit in the fire of her presence without losing himself, that man awakens something ancient in her, because she feels it. She feels when you are not trying to possess her. She feels when your love is not transactional. She feels when your attention comes not from lack, but from overflow. She cannot outmaneuver that. She cannot control that. She cannot resist that, because it's not about her anymore. It's about you, your integration, your shadow, your anima, your peace. This is why women chase the man who doesn't chase. This is why women respect the man who can walk away. This is why women test the man who cannot be tested, because she wants to feel your uncheckability, but not because she wants to submit, because she wants to finally relax into your depth, into your silence, into your presence. You are not there to fix her. You are not there to impress her. You are not even there to win her. You are there if she rises to meet you, not because you need her to, but because your path no longer bends for approval. You are no longer the man who seeks reflection in her eyes. You have become the mirror, still, clear, unshakable. And when she stands in front of you, she sees herself. Not because you reflect her fantasy, but because you've mastered your own. This is how projection ends. This is how silence begins. You don't lose yourself in women anymore, because you've finally found the man who was always lost inside you, the boy who performed, the lover who begged, the man who thought love meant being chosen. They all die, so that you can live. You don't explain anymore. You don't convince. You don't apologize for being whole. And in that silence, you become the storm she cannot escape. Most men spend their lives trapped in mirrors, chasing smiles, fearing silence, collapsing when love withdraws. But the man who faces the feminine within himself, who sees his projections for what they are, who no longer seeks to be completed by a woman, that man becomes untouchable. Not because he dominates, but because he no longer betrays himself for affection. This isn't about women. It never was. This is about you. The parts of you you abandoned. The truth you suppressed to be wanted. The power you forgot in the noise of validation. Carl Jung didn't leave us tricks. He left us a map into the unconscious, into the fire we fear, and the gold we're made of. And if you've come this far, brother, you already know. You were never broken, just hidden. Just waiting for the moment you would finally stop explaining and start embodying. So if this message stirred something deep inside you, something buried, unspoken, dangerous, don't let it fade. like, share, subscribe. And if you want this message to reach other men still trapped in their own reflection, support the mission using the link below. We're building a generation that no longer begs to be seen. We walk to be free, and if you're one of them, I'll see you in the next video.